Welcome to the Great Loop Radio podcast, brought to you by America's Great Loop Cruisers Association. We're dedicated to sharing Great Loop information and inspiration with those actively cruising, planning for, or dreaming about a Great Loop adventure. I'm Kim Russo. I'm the director of AGLCA. Today, we're continuing our series, The Story of Our Loop. This is where we bring some of our gold loopers who have completed the route on to tell you more about it. So these are inspirational stories, informational stories, and kind of show you there's no one way to do the Great Loop. So we're going to jump into that in just a moment. Before we do, I want to recognize and thank our Admiral sponsors who support AGLCA at the highest level. They are Kathy All. She is a certified financial planner with Edward Jones, Great Loop Yacht Sales, Passage Maker Trawler Fest, Skipper Bob Publications, SkyMed, and Waterway Guide Media. As always, we encourage our listeners and viewers to support these businesses that support the Great Loop. And with our sponsors recognized, I want to welcome Phil and Jenny Brown to the podcast. Phil and Jenny, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
It's so great to see both of you and see you back in your land life. But let's start off. Tell everyone about yourselves and your boating experience before the Great Loop.
Sure. So myself, I guess I had a little boating experience previously, kind of right before and right after college. Lived on the Gulf Coast of Texas, but then quickly went into my, let's say, corporate career and spent 30 some odd years in my corporate career. And during most of that time was away from the coast. And so really only involved kind of lake boating and small runabout boats and things at the lake during those years. And really even leading up to the Loop, last 10, 15 years, pretty minimal.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Jenny?
I'd been on a Disney cruise before.
We'll count that. So boating experience for Phil, not allowed for Jenny. But so what made you decide, and you did the Loop with your two daughters, so what made you decide to go ahead and do the Great Loop as a family?
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
Okay. We decided to do the Great Loop as a family because our girls were approaching a phase in their life where they were going to really start their own journeys and that would consume them pretty significantly. So we saw a window of about a year of time that we could really grab our girls and our family and spend time with them. And we had been thinking about and looking at the Great Loop. I had, at least, and trying to convince Jenny that it was something that she would enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think now she'll give you her opinion, which is she enjoyed it a lot more than she thought. And so we saw this window, and so we started setting things in motion. My early retirement, a little bit of planning, not a ton of planning, to get ready to go, so we could really grab this year of time with our girls on the boat. Maybe somewhat captive, but and spend a lot of quality time with them, seeing and doing a lot of different things, knowing that the future would change pretty dramatically when they headed off on their own careers and college journeys and things.
Yeah. And so, Phil, you mentioned kind of that year. Tell us, if you would, the ages of your daughters.
They're 21 and 18.
Mm-hmm. And I had
birthdays on the
boat,
on the Loop.
Yeah. And I had the pleasure of meeting your lovely family while you were out there cruising. And, I think your girls very much made it a journey for themselves to enjoy as well. I know one of them is very passionate about baking, got to do that along the way. But so, you kind of joked that they were held captive, but it seemed like they were enjoying it. Tell us, what as parents, with ages of children that are a little older than some of them we see on the Loop, how did they enjoy it? Did they feel like they were captive?
Oh, no, they loved it. They absolutely loved it. Everybody was so sad when it was over. Ellie took college classes online. She was a senior in high school. We came back and she graduated high school. And so she was doing classes, but it didn't consume, her time. As you said, Mackenzie baked, and her bakery here in St. Louis is called the Sweet Galley. She kept the same name. And there's Longfellow.
The other member of the family that went on
Longfellow's your dog. We didn't see him.
And so, they totally embraced it. And I wouldn't be surprised if they went on to boat later in life.
Yeah, that's great to hear. It can be tricky with teens. So
they were wonderful. We couldn't have done it and had such a great time if they hadn't been, committed to doing it and good attitudes. And it was great.
Oh, that's fabulous. So you're a family of four getting ready to do the loop, four adults essentially. So a little probably more space than if you were doing it as a couple are needed. So tell us what boat you choose.
Yeah, we chose a Marquis 55, which is 59-foot LOA overall boat. So I would say on the larger end of what we saw, most of the loop boats on the loop, not the largest, but on the larger end of it. And
Mhm.
that primarily was for space with the four people and the dog on the boat. So we wanted true three staterooms, and we had three staterooms, three heads on the boat. So, and then kind of three levels between a very large fly bridge, main Sally, the salon galley kind of, and then, all the staterooms below. So it gave us, separation as well with those three different levels and enough space that a family of four and a dog could be comfortable.
Yeah. So it being a little bit of a larger boat, did you find any challenges with getting used to that, handling that, especially since you hadn't boated in quite some time?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, obviously, it took some getting used to in the beginning. And one of the things I would say, if you haven't had a ton of boating experience or you've been away from it from a while, for us was very good. We hired a training captain for a few days to kind of get us off to a good start. So that made us feel a lot more comfortable and help the girls as well to really know and understand what they needed to do to help me as the captain on the boat, learn the boat and those things. So I would encourage people if you haven't been lifelong boaters and things like that. I think that's a really good option for people to utilize from a training captain standpoint. So he stayed with us on the boat for 3 or 4 days,
Yeah.
and that helped us kind of get the hang of that. Otherwise, size wise, really not a lot of challenges related to a little larger boat. I mean, sometimes every once in a while, marina, looking for a 60-foot slip, a little different than a 30 or 40-foot slip in a marina. But other than that, relatively okay. Draft, we were close to a 5-foot draft. So maybe that created some moments where you're a little more, ooh, when you're running the Trent Severn waterway and things that are controlled depth at 6 feet and things like that. But everything worked perfect. We didn't have any issues from the size of the boat standpoint.
Yeah, well, for sure. That's good advice to get that training until you're feeling comfortable and confident with the boat. Jenny, did you and the girls drive the boat or you served as crew for the most part?
We were crew for the most part. Now the training, it was rough, but you need to get it. I mean, we didn't know squat when he showed
Mhm.
up, the girls and I, and he worked us hard, but it was so worth it.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
what?
as you know,
Mhm.
docking and undocking are your more challenging moments, right, of things. And so
Absolutely.
during that training, I think he had us dock most days, I don't know, 10, 12 times a day or more during that period of time. So the girls really got to work out.
Yeah, for sure. And with that size boat, it's nice to have the extra crew aboard as well. There being
Definitely.
four of you aboard, certainly I'm sure helped as you were going through those docking practices, but also in reality as you got out there on the loop. Tell us the name of the boat and why you picked it.
Well, the name of the boat was the Salty Side Eye.
Hmm.
And we picked it because we had our dachshund on board and he gives us side eye all of the time. And so the night we chose the name for the boat, we were going on a date and it was my birthday. And my girls had invited a bunch of my friends to join us unbeknownst to me. So we get to the restaurant, I had the paper and we were going to, jot down names. And so we ended up letting all of our friends that were there put in their ideas. So we kind of
Hmm.
combined that but that just, it stuck and it's different, but it stuck.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's always fun to hear how people came up with their boat names because it's usually a super interesting story. And most people come up with something that fits so well and is unique and specific to them. So the fact that that salty side eye is related to your dog is really cool. So you bought the boat, you started the loop. Tell us where you started the loop, and how long did it take you before you crossed your wake after you had gotten started?
We started in Savannah, which is where we bought the boat. And here's a story. I looked at boats with him,
Hmm.
but this particular boat, life got really crazy at the end, and I did not see this boat, and neither did the girls until we walked up to it.
Wow.
So to get on, our training captain showed up 2 hours after we arrived. And so we just got our stuff on the boat and he came and then we started. So it took us 10 months to do it,
Yep, a little more than
a
10
little over
months.
10 months to
Hmm.
do it. But yeah, it was It was so fast and furious at the beginning. We were just kind of like drinking from a fire hose.
For sure. So what were your thoughts about the boat when you walked up and saw it and there it was? That was the one.
Loved it. Loved
Yeah.
it. Hmm.
It's a
He
beautiful boat. It's hard not to love it.
we did. We used Brent
Great loop
at
yacht
Great Loop
sales.
Yacht Sales. And
Hmm.
he had been with us shopping, and he stood up for me because Phil was like, well, maybe we could do a 2 bedroom. He was like, no, Jenny's not going to like that. So I always have Brent to thank for
Yes,
that.
there were
Brent is
many
a
times.
good guy. And,
Yeah, there were many.
him having also looped with his family of four, very much knew how valuable that third stateroom could be.
Yeah,
Definitely.
So,
yeah, there were
yeah.
many times we looked at boats, and he would definitely say, "Yeah, Jenny's not going to like that," or
Hmm.
"Jenny's, oh yeah, she'll love that." So he might have been a bit more objective than I was being at the time during the
Yeah.
process.
Now, so it took you a little bit more than 10 months. Did you feel, and everybody's got to do it their way, their pace, the amount of time that they feel is good for them. I know you were working to get home before high school graduation happened. So did that feel like the right amount of time? Did you feel like you could have done it faster and seen what you wanted to see, or did you feel like you missed some things?
I think the pace was about right. I mean, you
Hmm.
definitely could spend a little more time. I would say for us, the pace changed throughout our loop, which is we started probably a little faster than we would, after the fact now, having the
Hmm.
experience we did, and then got slower kind of as we went. So in the beginning, where we would only spend a day or two in places, as we got further into the loop, we started spending multiple days, weeks, in a few places a month in different locations. So, it definitely is plenty of time in a 10 to 12-month window, I think, to
Yeah.
do the loop. We set out originally with a 12-month time frame, and then really not knowing exactly when graduation was going to fall and those things. So I think that was good timing for us
Yeah.
and what we did, and we didn't feel rushed. We felt like we got to spend a reasonable amount of time and some long stays, as I mentioned before, in some places.
Yeah. Where did you choose to do those long stays?
We stayed in Fort Myers, which
Hmm.
is where we came across you.
Yeah.
We stayed for 45 days, I think, in Fort Myers.
Hmm.
And then we stayed in Key West for a month.
Lovely
That was
spots.
February,
Yeah, January.
January. And that was incredible.
Yeah, it is
Incredible.
certainly a highlight for a lot of us. So tell us a little bit about your specific cruising preferences. And that sounds like these might have changed over time, but marinas or anchorages, how fast did you tend to cruise? How many miles per day was kind of your sweet spot?
Yeah, as you mentioned, it did change throughout the loop for us. But as far as thinking about marinas versus anchoring, we preferred marinas, I would say. So we
Hmm.
spent probably close to 90% of our time in marinas and maybe 10% anchoring out. So that would equate to probably 40 times or so anchoring on
Hmm.
the loop. Some of those in gorgeous locations, that we really wanted to experience, and then sometimes it was out of necessity that you have to in the rivers and some places do a bit more anchoring from that standpoint. But I would say, yeah, about 90% marinas, and cruising speed. For us, our boat, it's not it's a planing boat, so
Hmm.
we were able to go fast when we needed to or wanted to, and there were times we did that. So there were times where we said, we want to go faster, we want to make a Gulf crossing fast, and not a long Gulf crossing, and so we would run on plane, at 30 miles an hour or so, and make those relatively fast, trips for some of those longer stretches. But most typical days, we were cruising somewhere around 12 to 13 miles an hour.
Hmm.
Was our typical cruising speed on the boat. And length of day, distance changed as we mentioned. In the beginning, we were probably trying to do 70 or 80 miles a day.
Hmm.
And towards the end, we slowed down to where, many times we were doing 25, 30 miles a day and more stops in between.
Yeah.
I loved anchoring too, because anchoring, you would anchor in the Mississippi River, and it's huge. And you would just sit and look at the sky and the stars, and here you are on the Mississippi River. And it was just very Huck Finish.
It very much is, and it's very very peaceful at
It
Anchorage. It's one of
is.
the things I really love about it. How did it work out with having a dog who grew up land life and moving onto the boat? And how did you handle being at anchor with the dog? Did you have to get to shore, or were you able to
We
train?
tried the pad, the grass pad. And I've heard a lot of people say that did not work. Very few I've heard that it does. But he would look at us when we would put him on that, like, what do you want me to do? And so he would go and stare down. He would hop up on the back and he would stare at the dinghy and want Phil to take him to land to go to the bathroom. So that's mostly, we did that every time if we could. Now, there were places like in this Shark River in the Everglades that we did not go to shore.
Yeah.
And so he was, I don't know what he did. I think he might have used that a couple of times.
He used it a few times. If he had no other option and was forced, he would use it.
And we got the side eye about that.
Yeah, and of course,
most of the time when we were anchored, we would take him to shore in the dinghy. And so that was one of the criteria when we were selecting the boat, was to make dinghy deployment really, really easy.
Yes.
For convenience for us as well, because we did a lot of exploring on the dinghy, but also for taking the dog to shore from anchoring or wherever we happen to be. In marinas, we use the dinghy a lot as well.
Yeah.
So that was a big key point for us in selection.
Yeah, getting the dog to shore is always a concern for people when they're selecting anchorages and things like that. So other than the Everglades, where with a small dog and the gators, you probably don't want to be out there. Did you consider that when you were looking for an anchorage, kind of scope out where there might be a place to land the dinghy?
Yeah, most definitely. We would look at and see kind of, was it dog friendly? Was there going to be a place to take him to shore? And there's a lot of resources out there, right? People have done a lot of reviews of anchorages and stuff. So that's typically something you can find good information on relatively easily, as well as, how dog friendly is the anchorage from that standpoint. So
yeah,
only a few places where we went that weren't terribly dog friendly from that standpoint. But usually even when the dinghy, you could find a place, right? You could run a little ways in the dinghy and find a place to be able to go to shore.
Yeah. What kind of dinghy and what kind of dinghy deployment system did you select, since that was one of your important criterias and you were, more than just a couple?
We selected a Highfield dinghy.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a new 2025 Highfield dinghy. I'm trying to remember which model it was, but it would hold 5 adults.
Mm-hmm.
And it then had a console and a good size outboard, 40 horse Datsu outboard. So could go relatively quick. We could plane with 4 people in the dinghy, so you could move around relatively quickly. And then we had a hydraulic platform, swim platform on the boat. So the dinghies sat on the hydraulic swim platform. So it was relatively easy to deploy.
I don't know if I would want a boat without the swim platform after doing this, because it was just so easy to get the boat on and off. And if you had to do it the hard way over and over and over, you'd finally, I think, go, I don't need it that bad.
Yeah, no, I think you're so right. When the dinghy is easy to deploy, it gets used. When it's not easy to deploy, you might as well not even have it, because it just becomes too much of a hassle, for sure.
We had some great moments in the dinghy, just riding around and just exploring things we wouldn't have seen if we'd been on the boat, that we would, get off and explore. So I think that is important.
What was the kind of the area geographically that you feel like you used the dinghy the most?
Florida.
Yeah, we used it a lot everywhere, but
we were just in Florida longer because we spent the winter.
Yeah, we spent the winter in Florida, and I fish, and so we did a lot of fishing from the dinghy as well, especially when we were in Florida. So,
and we got crab traps, and we would throw them out in Key West, and then go out and get our dinner. Yeah, so that was fun.
Yeah, absolutely unique experience for most of us.
Yeah, it got a lot of use in Florida, but we got a lot of use in the rivers as well. When we're anchoring and things, we use it in Canada as well. Considerable amount. Probably maybe the least amount of use was in the canals, right? In the Erie and Trent Severn and Oswego. Yeah. Although it did get used some in those as well to move around.
Let's go ahead and take a break and play a message from some sponsors. When we come back, I want to kind of shift from the practical details about the boat and talk a little bit more about challenges and highlights and what the Great Loop really meant to your family. So we'll be back in a moment. Embark on the journey of a lifetime with the new Leopard 40 Power Cat, the ideal companion for exploring America's Great Loop. Enjoy unparalleled comfort and fuel efficiency as you navigate this iconic waterway. Whether you're a seasoned cruiser or a first-time adventurer, the Leopard 40 Power Cat offers the ultimate in travel ease and luxury. It's time to set sail on your dream voyage, and it all starts with the Leopard 40 Power Cat.
Discover a new level of exploration and embark on an unforgettable experience. Contact us today and make your Great Loop adventure a reality. www.leopardcatamarans.com.
If you're enjoying these Great Loop stories and thinking about doing the loop, America's Great Loop Cruisers Association is here to help you make it happen. We connect our members with trusted resources, expert advice, and a community of loopers like the ones you've been hearing from today who have all done it before. Visit greatloop.org and use code LOOP20 for $20 off your new membership.
Stay with Eldine Shipyard on your Great Loop cruise or when leaving your boat north for the winter. Eldine Shipyard is a family-owned and operated first-class marina and boatyard, and we've been serving Lake Michigan boaters for more than 100 years. Whether it's time to relax at our pool and hot tubs or be hauled out with our 35 or 70-ton travel lifts for repairs or winter storage, Eldine Shipyard is a one-stop location for everything a looper might need. We're in southwestern Michigan, 5 miles west of Holland, where Lake Macatawa joins southern Lake Michigan. For those flying in and out, the Grand Rapids International Airport is less than an hour away. We're back on the Great Loop Radio podcasts. My guests today are Phil and Jenny, and we are talking about the story of their loop with their two daughters. So let's shift to kind of the less tangible things, not talking about the boat itself or the dinghy, but let's talk about, the highlights of the trip. What were some of the best moments or places for the two of you and for your girls?
When you get back, as you know, people ask you, what was your favorite place? What was your favorite place? We don't really have a favorite place, as you say. It's not tangible. It is just being free, and it is just a free feeling to not know what day it is sometimes, what time it is. You're just seeing things in a whole different way. And I will forever be grateful for the time I got to spend with these people on the boat, my people, and just seeing things and just getting to enjoy each day, getting up and adventuring. And that is something I will just hold in my heart forever and just go back and visit those memories. And what a treasure, what a gift.
It is a treasure. And Jenny, how long did it take you to get to that point where you did feel free? And because I think it takes most people some time to adjust to that. And for myself to realize it's okay to not have a schedule, to not be in control, to not know what day it is. So did it take you a while to adjust to that?
I would say within the first month, I was good. And I will say to anyone out there who's on the one that doesn't want to do it or is a little bit, doesn't know what's going to happen on a boat kind of thing, go for it. I loved it, and I cannot wait to get back on a boat. But yeah, and since we've been back, we've realized, and we knew this then, but we just realized, wow, that was something that not everybody gets to do. And, take those moments. I mean, I wouldn't trade it for $1 zillion the time I got to spend with the girls and with him and the dog. And, and it was just go.
There's Longfellow.
There's the salty side eye.
Yeah. Hey, Longfellow.
But yeah, it was just, but go for it. I mean, just look into it. It's just worth it. If you are on the edge, and we heard many people that we would meet along the way say, oh, I would love to do it, but my spouse doesn't want to do it. I was that spouse, and I can attest, do it. Just go for it.
Yeah. Good to hear that. How about you, Phil? Any highlights?
Yeah, I think each kind of segment of the loop has highlights to it, right? And that's one of the things I love so much about it, right? It's not like there's just one big moment or two big moments that you're looking for in the loop. It's really all along the way. And as you look at each segment of the loop, there's really key highlights and places, at least locations wise, whether they're a particular city that has certain things or particular geography or things that have highlights to them. So each one had tremendous amount. For us, I think we enjoyed a lot Canada and the Great Lakes. But I think a lot of that was because we had not spent a lot of time ourselves previously in those areas. So Florida, yes, while we love it and we loved it again, we spent a lot of time in that area and vacationing and doing other things as well. And so some of those areas we hadn't spent as much time were really highlights. And Canada was one of those fantastic. Been to Canada a fair amount for work, saw it and experienced it in a completely different way there. And I think the the boating life in Canada also was a highlight from that standpoint. It really felt like they were the small towns, especially on the Trent Severn, really catered to boating and did a lot of things around that. And so I would say there were highlights in each segment along the way for different reasons, which is nice to enjoy all those things. But I mean, there's so many of them. It's hard to put your finger on one, right? Being able to take your boat into New York Harbor and go up the Hudson River and, do all the different things that you do. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Most leaps also come with their challenges. So talk about that a little bit. Did you face challenges along the way, and how did you work on? Oh, look at your Burgee. That is
was
the
our
mark
first
of
Burgee.
someone. That's someone who has actually boated, though.
Yeah, we ordered a new one.
So besides your Burgee getting torn up, tell us, what were the challenges? How did you approach them and get past them?
Well, when we anchored, no, we were tying to the ball.
Oh, mooring ball.
Mooring ball. The first mooring ball, I nearly jumped off and just swam to shore and went home. It was in a storm and we couldn't get it. It was in the Hudson River, and that was a huge challenge learning that. I had a lot of bruises after that. And dropped a lot of the sticks into the water. Well,
I've had that same experience trying to grab a mooring ball, so I feel you on that one.
I did not want to do that again. And so we didn't use a mooring ball very often at all after that.
Yeah, that was something that we hadn't done a whole lot of and practiced on. And so the first time we did it, it looks quite simple to just pull up, grab a loop, and it's not necessarily.
I think in calm conditions, it is much easier, obviously. But Jenny, you mentioned there was a storm. Same, huge amounts of wind when we were trying to do it. So yeah, not ideal to be doing it in adverse conditions, but part of looping. Any other challenges?
Yeah, I would say, that part of it, which is, getting very tuned in to the weather and what's going on and planning around that and not planning around that, right? I think that's one as well of making, getting into that mindset you were talking about earlier of, how do you adjust from being in a more regimented, scheduled kind of world and environment and moving to one that's not. And you start doing that around weather, but then, realizing, hey, I don't necessarily need to, right? I'm going to, if I don't have a good window, I'm going to sit here and enjoy where we're at for a little while and maybe a little while longer than we planned on. And so I think those are some of the challenges, getting yourself adjusted to that different pace and saying, okay, yeah, maybe I have a rough schedule, but it's not a tight schedule, and we're not going to necessarily adhere to it on a daily basis of kind of things, and allowing yourself that freedom and to do those things, I think. And
one of the challenges of that, though, is when people want to come visit. We had a lot of company come and visit on the boat. And so planning for them to be able to fly in and fly out, as if anybody's had someone visit doing this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But that was one of the challenges. But you just have to be flexible, and your people have to be flexible and realize, hey, we're not in control.
Yeah, for sure. It is a challenge trying to arrange schedules when exactly you said it, Jenny, we're not in control. So you've been home for 3-4 months now. Does that sound about right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So a lot of loopers, after having time to reflect, getting home, kind of being able to look back on that, realize that they came back kind of different than they left. Going back to your normal routine, land-based friends who think what you did was really cool, but maybe you don't quite understand and are tired of hearing your stories about it. So did you change along the way? And if so, how did the loop change you?
I think we definitely, all 4 of us, changed along the way. Phil traveled all the time for his job, and we had been through a death in our family. And so we were all just kind of had been raw for a while and just kind of going through the motions. And I think that loop, I know the loop, just kind of put us back together, and it just kind of healed places that you needed to reconnect. It healed, when you needed to relax and put your priorities, find out what are your priorities. And when we got back, I did not expect, I've heard you say it, that when you get back, it's difficult. I did not expect it to be that difficult. You get used to not having to answer a text or a phone or have an appointment. And all of a sudden, people are calling or you have an appointment and you're like, I don't even want to answer the phone. And that's terrible. But it's true. And it just took some adjustment to get back into real life.
Yeah. Well, we're certainly sorry for your family's lost, and thankful that the loop could provide some healing to you. How about you, Phil? Anything
that was
changed?
Oh yeah, many things, but that was part of the impetus, right? Where we'd had our own loss, and we'd had our neighbors were involved in a tragic car accident, lost an entire family during it, and that was part of the emphasis of just understanding and saying, tomorrow isn't guaranteed. We want to do this, and we had this window with our children, and we said we're just going to grab it and take it and go. From that standpoint, but there's definitely tangible things when you come back, right? You get back to your home and you're like, wow, what's all this space? What do I do with it? Compared to when you're on a boat, on the boat, because of the space constraints, everything has a place and an order to it, and those things. You got a lot more things, a lot more stuff, but so that's one of the things I think that changed as well. I was organized before, but I'm probably more organized now, of wanting to put things in their place and make sure everything has a place from doing that time on the boat. But I think also just slowing down and enjoying life a little bit more, and realizing that you do have that freedom. You should take the time to relax and enjoy a little bit more, and making sure that cognizant of that when you get back. And as Jenny said, those normal things of living a land-based life start coming back, and making sure you kind of set them in priority compared to yourself.
And you meet people on the loop, and it seems like you don't have the time constraint. So you might spend 3 or 4 hours just hanging out on the boat, having dinner and just talking. And we're so hurried in our normal life that it really, does make me stop and think, hey, let's just slow down and pour into each other and do life more intentionally, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. And I hadn't really realized it till you described it that way, Jenny and Phil. But as you two know, we sold our boat recently. We have not returned to normal life. We're doing month at a time Airbnbs because I think we're just not ready to settle into the standard routine. I think we're probably avoiding it.
And I would too if I could.
Gonna have to do a little self-analysis on that one, I think. So
yeah, we've talked about that for the future too, right? And is there more boating adventure? Do we want to do more RV van, something nomadic, kind of like you're describing as well? But right now, the necessity was to come back, get everybody settled, get the girls moving on their tracks of heading off to college, and Mackenzie getting business started and things, and so that's what we're doing.
Yeah, man, I'm so excited for the girls, for what's next for them, because the baking business for Mackenzie is amazing. I mean, you're going to have one leaving the nest to go to college, and that's also quite a milestone. So you've got a lot coming up too. But if you could go back to that day, Jenny, when you first saw the Salty Side Eye, is there anything you would do differently about that time that you had on the loop?
Yes, I would treasure every day more. I mean, some days you're just like, oh, we got to get through this. We got to, it's hot. Treasure it, because when it was over, I just like, oh, well, I didn't, you just think all these things. Oh, I didn't soak that in enough. Soak it in. And it's just, you can't get it back.
Yeah.
You can keep doing other adventures, but just soak in every area and don't let it slip away just as a day in your life.
Yeah. Great advice. Anything from you, Phil, on that one?
We covered it a little bit before. I think the biggest learning that I would change now would be that pace we adopted more on the second half of the loop, or maybe after the first couple of months of the loop, really starting that way, right? But that's part of the journey, right? You have to learn as you go and process it that way. But I think that's the definite key part of it, is making sure that you enjoy the pace of it, and take time to see and do all the things you want to do, and don't worry about the schedule on the loop.
Yeah.
Overall, I think was probably one of the bigger things I would change in the first part of the loop.
Yeah. And any other, as we start to wrap up, any final advice that you would give to those who are maybe sitting where you were before the loop, just kind of contemplating, is this the time? Should we go ahead? Practical or inspirational, any advice for those loopers?
Well, he would sit and watch your podcasts and watch other people doing their videos. And he would have me come, oh, look at this, look at this. And I literally was terrified. And I was like, I can't watch any more of those because it just terrifies me. But I don't know why. But because when I got out there, it wasn't terrifying. It was wonderful. And I'm just so grateful we got to do this. And I think just go for it is what I would say. Just go for it.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, right? You need to do some planning, but don't overthink it. Don't spend too much time planning in it. If it's something that you would like to do and are interested to do it, take some, tangible steps and jump into it. I mean, you look at ours and, we closed on our boat 2.5 weeks before we left. And, we'd done a little bit of planning for a few months before. I mean, more than a few months, but really significantly the last few months before we left, really, getting the things we needed or thought we needed. That's another episode probably in itself for the things you thought you needed and what you really needed and didn't need. But I would say the biggest is don't overthink it. Don't wait too long. Jump in and enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely some words of wisdom. Yeah, go ahead, Jenny.
I was going to mention was I did a YouTube channel, which I'm not finished with yet, but I'm still working on it. But log it somehow so that you have this
for yourself
for later. Because these videos, I mean, I'm not doing them for the public. I'm doing them for us. I get people commenting, I want to know more about the boat. But for us down the road, we'll want to go, oh, remember when we did this, or remember when Ellie did this, or Kinsey did this. It's not about the boat per se. It was about the journey. And so keep that for yourself. So some way, whatever works for you.
Yeah. You said you're still working on the YouTube channel. Do you want to share how people can find it, or are you saving that until it's?
No, it's fine. I just put another episode out last week, actually, even. I'm just going to do it along. It's the Salty Side Eye on YouTube. So
great. Yeah, we'll link to it in the show notes on this. So thank you for that. Great advice. I'm so excited for your family for what's next. I know Ellie's getting ready to leave for school. Mackenzie's got her bakery going on there in St. Louis. It's always great to watch the Loop kids, even when they're pretty much grown when they start. It's so fun to see what they go off and do when they finish and how the Loop impacted them. So I can't wait to hear more from your family. But thank you for sharing the details today, sharing some advice and inspiration with others. I really appreciate you joining us, and especially when land life gets super busy, I appreciate you carving out some time for us today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks to everybody who's watched or listened today. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Great Loop Radio podcast. Until then, safe cruising.